What if Tony Stark found the Omnitrix? We start off in the Ben 10 universe. Ben 10 had just passed away from old age and lived a happy life. Azimuth stared at his watch, his prized creation, his redemption for creating Ascalon and bringing forth destruction. He knew there would be no one else like Ben in this universe worthy of wielding such a device, the Omnitrix, the strongest weapon, a level 20 weapon capable of altering DNA and transforming one into various different alien life forms. He would disassemble it, but then suddenly an explosion was heard. Azimuth, I waited so long for this day, and I won't let you take it away from me. Hand over the Omnitrix. Ben Tennyson is dead. There's no one here to help you now, the figure says. Never, Vilgax. The only one worthy of possessing it has passed away, Azimuth responded. We could do this the hard way, or the easy way, Vilgax says, as Azimuth grabbed the watch and ran to his ship and launched off. This is the only way. I hope whoever gets you is good and that I don't doom another universe, Azimuth says, as he uses a dimension ray and opens a portal and throws the watch into it. He then shuts the portal, destroying the ray. Soon, a huge bang is heard and Vilgax breaches through the ship and looks around before grabbing Azimuth. Where is it? Where's the watch? Where's the Omnitrix? Tell me now, Vilgax shouts at Azimuth. Somewhere you will never get it. Somewhere you will never find it. It's not in this universe, Azimuth says, as he slaps his hands against Vilgax's body, shocking him with shocking gloves. In the MCU, a figure is seen crashing against the earth, hitting the ground. He was in a giant armor that broke. This armor looked not so polished, it was broken. It looked like it was made from scraps of metal. Not bad, the figure says. This was Tony Stark in his Mark 1 Iron Man suit. He had just broken out of the 10 Rings terrorist base that had held him captive. Suddenly, another boom was heard. Tony turned his head to see that something had fallen a few meters away from him. Tony got up and ran towards it. When he got there, he saw a small black pod that was a sphere. He was surprised such a small thing had created such a big impact, such a big crater against the earth when his giant armor did not even that much damage, not even a percentage of damage. Where could that have fallen from? It definitely had to fallen from space or somewhere, at least higher than the height that Tony had fallen from. The small pod then opened up to reveal something. A watch, Tony said, confused. He got closer to it and went to examine it, but it quickly latched onto his wrist. What the hell, Tony says, trying to get off. While he was doing that, a dial popped up and Tony saw some unearthly beings on it. Tony, being Tony, pressed down on it as a green light enveloped the area. He then looked to see his hands were on fire. He looks at his armor to see a reflection in it. He looked like a being made out of fire. Tony had just turned into Heatblast, unknown to him. What has happened to me? Tony asked himself, confused, as he aims his hand towards the armor. And then he wills it to burn. As the armor starts to burn, incinerating it all. So I can generate something higher than 666 degrees Celsius at least, Tony thought, seeing the armor burn like that as if it was nothing. As then he started to heat it up even more. After that, he started shooting fireballs in the sky, trying to alert people to his location, trying to see if at least Rhodey or someone would come to save him. The watch then glowed red as it timed out. He heard helicopters and waved his arms. Eventually, one of them saw him and landed. Luckily for him, his friend Rhodey was on one of them. As Rhodey came up to him, "How was the Fumby?" he asked. Tony just chuckled. He looked at the watch on his wrist while he was sitting in the helicopter. It was red now. At first it was green. Suddenly, a sound was heard and it turned green. They eventually landed. Tony then saw Pepper with tears in her eyes. "Tears for your long lost boss?" he says, jokingly. "Tears of joy. I hate job hunting," Pepper says, as they entered the car. Pepper then tells Happy to take them to a hospital, but Tony declined, saying he had something to do. He tells them to get him a cheeseburger and then schedule a press conference. After they got the cheeseburger, they arrived at Stark Industries, where the press conference was going to be held. Tony was just looking at the watch after the press conference had gone as same as it went in the movies, where he shut down weapons manufacturing without alerting anybody. When he arrived home, he couldn't contain his curiosity. He hit the button and the dial came up as he saw 10 aliens. "Jarvis, start making a profile on these aliens that I will transform into," Tony says. "Aliens? Sir, are you okay?" Jarvis responds as Tony just tells him what happened. "Very well then, sir, I'll start making some profiles." He now had profiles for 10 aliens that were available: Heatblast, Wildmot, Diamondhead, Accelerate, Grey Matter, Forearms, Stinkfly, Ripjaws, Upgrade, and Ghost Fleet. Those were the 10 aliens available to him. Of course, he never named them. Tony had already used the Fire Guy, so he presses down on the dog-looking figure, which was Wildmot, and he transforms into alien-like dog. After that, he waits and then he uses all the aliens, testing out their abilities, which Jarvis adds to their profiles. "I wonder how much more better I can make mine or Rhodey's suit if I add Grey Matter's brains," Tony thought. Tony then built the suit. He had invented nanotech earlier thanks to transforming into Grey Matter, where it was simple to make such small things. He had also built a new element arc reactor, which wasn't based off the one that Howard made, but something from Ben 10's universe, an element from there. This was due to the fact he used grey matter. After that, he went and tested various ways of using nanotechnology, like the nanoblade or the thrusters. He also realized that there was an icing problem, so he made the Mark III. Tony then realized he wasn't invited to his party that was advertised on the news, so he went there and found out that his company was double dealing the weapons. He then came home and saw the news. He was pissed. These 10 rings have made it personal. That was Yinson's town. He would make them pay. Tony then suited up as he arrived at the Golmira town and shot repulsor beams at the terrorists before using nano rockets at the terrorists who were using hostages. He then flew away. His systems alerted him of a missile coming this way thanks to his upgrade, thanks to using grey matter. He then flew around the missile and then created his own missile launcher using his nanotech and blew up the tank. He then proceeded to do the same to a Jericho missile. Tony then turned his legs into turbo boosters using nanotech and made it to his house within seconds, avoiding the dogfight in the air. We now see Obadiah Stane in a meeting with Raza, the terrorist that had kidnapped Tony Stark. Raza then explains how Tony broke out using a weaponized armor and that they had managed to recover the schematics. They gave it to him in return that he would give it to them when he had finished an armor, but Stane double crosses them. Raza, the leader, was killed by Stane while he had his people kill the rest of the terrorists. He then goes back and orders his people to start making an armor, modifying the schematics to make it better than Tony's, which he didn't know that Tony had nanotech. With Tony had just taken out his nanotech arc reactor and put in a normal one. This was due to the fact that he hasn't made a lock mechanism and couldn't let anybody get their hands on it yet. He left it in a secure vault. He didn't want anybody getting their hands on that. He then tells Pepper to go and upload a virus to steal all of the files of Obadiah Stane from Stark Industries. Pepper tried to refuse, but eventually Tony managed to convince her. Tony then gets a call from Pepper. He sits down and was about to answer it, but then he feels paralyzed. He hand grabs him and ends the phone call. Stane then explains everything about how he ordered the hit on Tony. He then proceeds to remove the arc reactor. "You had one last golden egg to give. You really think that just because you have an idea it belongs to you?" Stane says as he explains how Howard made an atomic bomb and shared it with the world, and how Tony was being selfish. Stane didn't realize that Tony's watch, the Omnitrix, started to glitch out when he left. Suddenly, Tony transformed into aliens over and over again until a new one was unlocked. This was due to the failsafe protocol that the Omnitrix has to protect its host from dying if it was an unnatural death. It continued to switch between aliens until it unlocked Wildvine. Thanks to Wildvine's regeneration, even though the shrapnel pierced Tony's heart, Tony healed. Tony then turned back. He then walks to the arc reactor, which he no longer needed. Tony then encased himself into his nanotech armor and then flew. He made it there within seconds. Tony then shot a beam towards Stane as he was about to kill Pepper. The two then fought it out. Eventually Tony won, knocking out Stane. However, Stane managed to gain consciousness. Stane was on the ground, most of his armor broken by the nanoblades and the stronger repulsor blast. Tony then walked up to Stane as his armor turned back into the arc reactor. "It's over, Stane. I'm about to put you away for good," Tony says. But then Stane aims a blast at Tony. He had a backup generator in his suits, so a missile hit Tony point blank range. "That's the thing about you, Tony. You're too arrogant. You should have just ended me while you had the chance," Stane says. But Tony's watch started to glow green as a flash of green was seen, and Tony was once again wildvine, healing from the damage. "What the hell happened to you, freak?" Stane yelled as he started to move back in fear. "I was gonna send you to jail, Godfather, but now I will just end you," Tony says, as his hands formed into a giant spike ball and smashed against Stane's chest, killing him. Tony then reverted back, all fixed up thanks to Wildvine's healing. Pepper then came up and hugged him. Unknown to Tony, someone had seen this. This was Coulson, Agent Coulson. We now see Tony in the press conference room. "Mr. Stark, are you sure that was a bodyguard who just conveniently had the armor and saved you? And what about that creature?" Christine Everhart asks. "It's one thing to question the official story, but it's another to make wild accusations of me being a superhero," Tony replied. "I'm not saying you're a superhero. And there's video footage of the green creature, Mr. Stark," she says. Tony sighs. "The truth is, I am Shapeshifter," Tony says as he presses on the watch and turns into Wildvine. Suddenly, the roof opens up and the Iron Man armor is seen coming down, but this time it was black and red. "And I am War Machine." The faceplate retracts, revealing Rhodey. The crowd goes wild. Tony and Rhodey are seen walking into the Stark house after celebrating when the lights start to flicker on and off before it turned off. "Jarvis," Tony yells. "Welcome home, sir," Jarvis says, distorted. "I am War Machine. I am Shapeshifter. You two think you're the only superheroes in the world? Mr. Stark, Colonel Rhodes, you become part of a bigger universe. You just haven't realized it yet," the figure says, walking up to them. "Who the hell are you?" Tony asks. "Nick Fury, Director of S.H.I.E.L.D. and I'm here to speak to you about the Avengers Initiative," Fury says. "But guys, that's all for this part. Peace."